The movie begins with Sammy trying to reach his ex-girlfriend Daphne. His call goes straight to voicemail, so he ends up smashing his phone into a wall. He goes to a bar where all of his old friends come to greet him. They tell him that they've missed him and ask why he hasn't shown up for a couple of years. He doesn't say anything about the past. He just assures them that he will be around more. His old friend, Nazem, sits next to him and asks him where he's been. He tells him that he hasn't been to his bar for a long time, but Sammy tells him the same thing that he told everyone. Nazem asks him about Daphne, and that's when we're taken back to when Sammy met Daphne. In that exact same bar, we see a drunken Sammy watching Daphne. She catches his gaze and smiles back at him. After some time, Sammy sits next to Daphne at the bar. She turns around to look for her friend, and that's when Sammy grabs her face and kisses her. She pushes him away, slaps him, and throws a drink in his face. Sammy goes to the bathroom with Nazem to get cleaned up. He and Nazem are laughing, as if it's the funniest thing in the world. Daphne comes to the bathrooms and asks Sammy whether he always acts with women like that. Sammy smiles and tries to impress her, but she ends up calling him weird. As she tries to leave, Sammy stops her and asks for her name. She doesn't want to give it to him, of course, but Nazem calls out to her to give Sammy a chance. Sammy smiles in victory, but Daphne pushes the both of them and leaves the bathrooms. After a long night of drinking, Sammy gets up in the morning and heads to the gym. He sees his and Daphne's trainer there and greets him. He tells him that they will do their session in an hour, and Sammy can't help but ask about Daphne. The trainer tells him that she has canceled on him, and Sammy realizes that she had done that only not to see him. He goes home after the gym, and as he's getting ready to shower, his doorbell rings. He hurries to the door and hopes to see Daphne, but it's his landlord. His heart breaks when he finds out that Daphne had told the landlord they've broken up, so he doesn't say anything. He takes the letter from the man's hand and closes the door. He sinks into the couch and falls asleep in the living room. Sammy goes to work the next morning, and everyone is surprised to see him there. His colleague comes to him and starts complaining about their boss. She says that their boss has been so stressed lately, and all of that stress is being thrown at her. She takes Sammy's box of cigarettes and motions for him to smoke with her. They go in front of the building and light up a cigarette. She starts complaining again about how she can't have anything in life. She says she wants to play guitar and go to concerts more, but she never has time. A text message disrupts Sammy from his thoughts, so he opens his phone and tries to read it. He takes forever to read the text message, so his colleague snatches it out of his phone. She reads a text from Daphne saying that she will be picking up her stuff. His colleague is in shock and apologizes for reading a personal message. She asks him whether they've broken up, and he says that they haven't. His phone rings, and he answers it immediately. Instead of Daphne, it's an estate agent who he called when looking for a new place. He tells her that he hasn't called her, and she tells him to come to her office. She plays the message he had left her, and it's him drunk, blabbering, and begging her to get him out of his apartment. She sits down and asks him whether he's looking for a place for real, and notices him staring at a man who's selling cotton candy behind her. Sammy reminisces on the time when he overheard Daphne saying that she feels sorry for the people that work on the street. Sammy goes to the man and buys his whole stand. He takes it to the group, and Daphne can't believe what he's done. All of them go to a party. Daphne and Sammy are chatting. She congratulates him on landing his new job, and he tells her that he'll see where things go with time. Daphne asks him whether he's hesitant, and he says he isn't, and that his mother had made him take the job. She laughs at the fact that he had no choice, so Sammy tries to redeem himself by saying that he doesn't want to be his mother's burden. Their conversation is cut off by the singer taking Daphne to the dance floor. They have fun and sing a different song, and Sammy takes Daphne to show her his babies. He takes her behind a building to show her his graffiti. She is wowed and calls his work awesome. He tells her that he loves doing it, but there's no money making from that. She says that money-making jobs are not fun, so he should be happy with the work he has. He jokes with her that he will be the fun maker, and she will be the bread maker when they get together. She matches his energy and jokes that he will be her burden if things were to work out like that. At another party, Daphne asks him about his previous relationship, and Sammy says that they had to end it because they were on overtime. He asks her whether there's anyone he should be worried about, and she tells him that there isn't. Sammy takes his sweater off, and Daphne is impressed when she sees that he has a tattoo with significance to her. It cuts to the present, and we see Sammy getting into his apartment. He remembers Daphne's text message from earlier, so he goes to check whether she has taken all of her stuff, and finds out that she has. Nazem gets to his apartment with beers in his hand and calls out for him. Sammy comes to the living room and sees that the door is open. He tries to close it but catches his gingers on the door. They take care of his hand and sit down to play some games. Sammy thinks that he should have broken up with Daphne. He realizes that they were on borrowed time, and admits to having been blind. He tells Nazem that she had taken everything, and wonders why it's all so sudden. Nazem tells him that the situation must have been planned, and Sammy finds no reason not to believe that. He asks him whether they've spoken, and Sammy tells him that there's no reason, because they're already broken up. They go to the balcony to smoke, and Sammy wonders why she had broken up with him. He admits that he has not made any significant mistakes or done her wrong. Nazem tells him that he should spend some time alone and sort his feeling out. He gives him a heads up on getting over her and says that it will be tough. Sammy says that Daphne isn't going through a difficult time, so neither should he. He claims that he has a life to live and nothing's going to stop him from doing so. The doorbell rings, and as Sammy opens the door, we are taken to another flashback, when Daphne had first come to Sammy's apartment. He lets her in, and she goes to the balcony. He follows, and she tells him that the concert had been great. Sammy agrees and says that he had a fun time. Daphne asks him why he had left without giving her a kiss, and Sammy gets surprised. He asks her why she hadn't kissed him if she wanted to have a kiss so bad. He answers his own question, and says it's because she doesn't believe in them being anything. She gets closer to him and says that she wants to be happy. She asks him whether that's enough, and he says that they should find out. She kisses him, and he kisses back. They break the kiss, and she asks for wine. We see them in his living room, a couple of days later. That's when they made love for the first time, and it was pretty early into the relationship. Sammy wakes up the next morning and follows the wise words of his friend Nazem. Nazem claims that one should act and then think. This sticks to Sammy's brain, and he goes to the hair salon and bleaches his hair. He goes to his friend's cafe shop and has a chat with her. She tells him that she loves his hair, but says that he looks like a mess. She doesn't expect anything else from him, because he has been in a relationship with Daphne for 6 years. Sammy claims that there is no damage on his side, but his friend tells him that moving won't make him forget her. Sammy is instantly reminded of the time he had asked Daphne to move in with him. We see a huge graffiti on a side of a building, and it's a painting of Daphne. Sammy is leading her to it, but she has a blindfold on. When they get to it, he removes it, and all of his friends come out cheering. Daphne turns and kisses him in appreciation, and that's when he asks her to move in with him. He snaps back to reality and heads to work. He gets into a meeting and starts drawing something in his notebook. He is drawing the fireplace in the living room, where he and Daphne would sit in front of often. His boss notices him drawing and asks to have a look. He hands it to her, and she asks him to work on it, because she wants to put it into a project. He agrees and looks back at the drawing. It reminds him of a time when he and Daphne were late to a gathering they didn't want to go to. He is trying on the new clothes Daphne had bought him, but doesn't seem to like them. She tells him that he looks great, but he suggests trying something new. Daphne realizes what he's talking about and tells him that they don't have time, but he doesn't care. He takes off his clothes and puts some shoes on, grabs the bag of old clothes, and gets on the street. He asks her to come down, but she looks at him through the window. She realizes that he won't come back up, so she starts undressing as well, and in a few seconds Sammy comes back. He kisses her, and they end up making love and forgetting about the gathering. They go to the cinema the next day to watch a movie Daphne loves. After the movie ends, Daphne asks Sammy how he liked it. He says that the movie had been boring for him, and Daphne gets offended as she thinks she's like that. A bus catches Sammy's attention, and he tells the bus driver to stop. He calls out for Daphne to get in, and even though she doesn't want to, she ends up getting on the bus. Daphne asks him what his plan is, and Sammy tells her that they don't know where the bus's last stop is, so he wants to find out. They get off the bus in the middle of nowhere but see a hotel nearby. They check in and fall asleep soon. Sammy wakes up in the middle of the night to find Daphne on the balcony. She tells him that she loves him, with tears in her eyes. He gets closer to her, and she admits to having a dark side to her, and always being unhappy. Sammy asks where that side of her is, and she tells him that being with him has made the sadness disappear. He hugs her, and she lets the tears roll down her cheeks. Sammy snaps back to reality as the meeting finishes. He goes to his boss and promises to have the project finished in time. He rips the papers off and plans to have a new start. Sammy goes to his father's party later in the night and catches up with him. His father tells him that he had spoken to Daphne, and Sammy wants to know the details. His father assumes that Daphne wanted to get married, but Sammy didn't get the hint of it, so she left. Sammy tells him that there was no talk about marriage, but his father tells him that it will come to him soon. His father says that Daphne had told him that their relationship had been unhappy, and it was obvious to everyone. Sammy agrees and tells his father that he will be moving and starting fresh. His father is happy for him and tells him that Daphne will be doing the same thing. He admits that he has noticed Daphne partying a lot and is concerned about her. His boss comes to him and hugs him because she feels bad about his breakup. She tells him that she has landed a client and wants him to talk to the client if he's okay with it. Sammy says that he won't let his personal life get to him and claims that he's ready. He sees his colleague dancing and finds himself attracted to her. They end up kissing in the bathroom, but she stops it before it goes any further, and they get noticed. He gets out of the bathroom and sees a girl playing the zither, and it reminds him of the time when Daphne had practiced playing the same instrument. He had come home from work, only to hear his girlfriend playing the zither. Sammy passes the dry cleaning place close to his house, and it reminds him of the time when he had forgotten to pick up Daphne's suit from the store. She had an important meeting, and the suit was really important to her. Sammy goes to the swimming pool to ease his mind from the situation he's in. After finishing a lap, he hears someone call out his name. He turns to see his estate agent and asks her why she hasn't responded to his text messages. She laughs and says that she has called him twice, but he didn't answer. He tells her that he needs to move urgently, but she says she doesn't believe him as she walks off. It cuts to the past, and we see Sammy admiring another girl. Daphne catches his gaze and asks him whether he wants her to hook him up with the random girl. Sammy jokes and says that she doesn't have the guts. Daphne takes on the challenge and tells the girl that her boyfriend had been staring at her all night. Daphne tries to leave, but Sammy stops her and tells her that her jealousy is getting out of hand. The next day, we see them in a more Daphne-like situation. They are kayaking, and Sammy seems to be bored out of his mind. They get into an argument about how Sammy has to have something going on in his life and can't be still. Sammy seems to be tired of the conversation, so he lays down to rest for a bit. Daphne starts shaking the kayak and jumps into the water. Sammy thinks it's a crazy idea, but he jumps in as well. After their swim, they rush into the car to warm up. It snaps back to reality, and we see Sammy presenting his art to his boss. She tells him that it's not what she's looking for, so he promises to work on it more. He asks for an advance, and his boss lets him have one, but makes sure he promises to finish the drawing in time. He goes back to his desk, and memories of Daphne calling him about her grandmother's funeral come back to him. She had called him crying, but all he did was lie to her that he had a meeting soon and had to hang up the call. He remembers that his colleague Ozj had been upset because their boss had yelled at her, so he helped her get over it. We see Sammy at his desk, struggling to finish the drawing he had promised to his boss. He sees Ozj in front of him and gets an idea. He invites her to his house later in the evening, and she agrees as he gets a call. His mother calls asking him where he is, and says his brother's waiting for him to pick him up. He tells her that he will be there, as he's on his way already. She asks about his moving out and says that his landlord had called her. Sammy can't believe that he's calling his mother, and tells her that they will talk later. We get to see that Daphne was mad at Sammy for not showing up to her grandmother's funeral, as another flashback appears. We see Sammy get on a plane, and Daphne is surprised to see him there. She planned to go to Kars alone, but Sammy is joining her as well. He asks to sit next to her, but she doesn't want him to. He apologizes for not coming to the funeral, but Daphne tells him that he doesn't care about her. They land and get to the hotel. Daphne asks him not to call her and not to pull any funny stuff while they're there. Sammy goes to the mini bar after some time to work on his drawing. He sees a woman at the bar and notices her tattoo. He tells her that her tattoo is nice, and she thanks him. She asks him what he's doing there, and he tells her that his girlfriend is at a conference. He admits that he is a fan of the cold weather in Kars. He asks her what she's doing there, and she tells him that she has to be there because of her family's corporation. She admits that she doesn't want to work in a corporation, but at least there's a place secured for her. They get to know each other and spend the afternoon together. They sit down for a cup of tea before they leave, and the girl asks him whether he gets tired of himself. He tells her that he doesn't have time for that. She tells him that she has to leave and asks for his number. They exchange information, and she heads to her room in hopes that he would want to come as well, but he doesn't as he stays loyal to his girlfriend. The next morning, Daphne wakes up to a room full of lettuce. She sees a card from Sammy, and it says that he couldn't find an open florist. He hugs her from behind and apologizes for not attending the funeral. She tells him that he should apologize to her grandma, and claims that her grandma loved him a lot. Sammy tells her that he had finished the tattoo design and shows her it. It cuts to him doing her tattoo, but they get into an argument. He's putting numbing cream on her as she asks about his friend Burl. He tells her that it's an old friend he rarely talks with, and that's why she doesn't know about her. Daphne asks him what he would do in her situation, and he says that he would ask who the person is. She reads a rather inappropriate joke that Burl has sent him, and asks him how he would respond to that. He tells her that he would reply with a smiley face, but she ends up kicking him out of the room. It cuts to the present. Sammy has picked up his brother and is taking him to his place. His brother asks him about Daphne, and he tells him that they have broken up. His brother looks in her social media and tells Sammy that she has deleted all of their pictures together. They get to the building, and Sammy walks into a repair shop. He wants to get his phone fixed, but it's too expensive for him. His brother ends up paying with the money his mother had given him, because she knew he wouldn't want to spend that much. They get home and wait for their pizza delivery. There is a ring on the door, and Sammy is surprised to see Ozj standing in front of his apartment. She assumes that he has forgotten about her coming over, and he lies that he hasn't. They have pizza with his brother and chat. Sammy tells Ozj that he is his stepbrother, and they have different fathers. Ozj asks his stepbrother what his goal is, and he tells her that he is studying microbiology. After they finish the pizza, Ozj goes to the kitchen to leave the dirty dishes. She sees a picture of Sammy and Daphne on the fridge, and tells Sammy that they look cute. He tells her that they're over, and he had forgotten to take it off. They end up working for the remaining time, and when Ozj leaves, Sammy searches for an apartment online. He can't seem to get the fact that Daphne had deleted their photos out of his mind, so he asks his brother whether he would have deleted the photos if he had social media. His brother tells him that he would have, and that she is trying to hurt him to avoid her own pain. He takes his brother to campus the next morning, and as they're getting breakfast, Sammy asks him whether the new picture of Daphne is a bikini picture. His brother laughs at him for making a social media account and asks for a follow. Sammy goes to work after dropping his brother off and presents his idea in the meeting. He does it lazily and presents it like something he was forced to do. His boss gets upset and asks him to work on a project the next time he pitches an idea. She tells everyone that she has had it with them disrespecting her work and claims that they don't have a good work ethic. She asks to be alone, and they all leave. Ozj asks Sammy what they worked on for the previous night, but he tells her not to worry. He gets home and decides to get his personal life on track. He calls his friends, paints his walls, and even signs the release the landlord had asked him to sign a long time ago. He meets up with his estate agent the next morning, and they take a look at one apartment. She tells him that the owners are decent, and as she continues to talk about the apartment, he gets closer to her. She asks him why he's so close, and he points to a tattoo on her neck. She tells him that a guy had made it for her, and notices his tattoo as well. They get close to each other, and Sammy kisses her. He pins her against the wall, but breaks it off after some kissing. They get dressed, and he invites her to go for lunch. She tells him she isn't fond of that idea, so he gets straight to the point and tells her that he wants the apartment. She starts talking about all the deposits and fees he needs to make first, so he cuts her off and tells her that he will take care of that. They get out of the apartment, and she tells him she knows he's running away from something, but can't figure out what it is. We are taken back to the time when Sammy and Daphne's relationship started deteriorating. Daphne's uncle wanted her to work for him in Hanover, but she didn't want to go without Sammy. He tells her that she is free to go without him, because he doesn't plan on going. She calls her uncle and tells him that she won't be accepting the offer, and Sammy waits for her to finish the call so he can show her the painting of her on his wall. She hangs up the call and doesn't say anything nice about the painting, and asks him whether her nose is that big. They take a walk, and Sammy notices that Daphne has something on her mind. She asks him whether ejecting to offer to Hanover was a smart idea, as she looks at the distance. He hugs her from behind, and tells her that he loves her a lot. She smiles and admits that's all she wanted to hear, and asks him to repeat it. He asks her whether she's been happy lately, and she admits she hasn't, but hopes that the sun will shine on her soon. We see Sam in front of Nazim's bar, reminiscing while listening to music. Nazim knocks on his window and tells him that they're waiting for him. He looks at Daphne's socials and decides to take some pictures of his own. Nazim hands him his share of their bet, but can't help himself but tell Sammy that he looks bad. He tells him that he is talented, so he should take his things and go to Japan, for example. Sammy thinks that it's a good idea. He goes to the gym the next morning, and his trainer tells him he's going to miss him. Sammy gets confused and asks what he's talking about, and he tells him that Daphne told him she's moving to Germany. Sammy tells him that they planned on moving but have broken up. His trainer says he's sorry, but Sammy tells him not to worry about it. After working out, Sammy goes to the sauna. He can't seem to keep his cool, so he does the unthinkable. He takes one of the hot stones and presses it against the tattoo he has for Daphne. He remembers the time when he had gotten the flu, and Daphne wanted to take care of him, but he ended up locking himself in the bathroom. His behavior had driven Daphne crazy, so she had left him to sleep in the tub. Sammy gets home after the sauna and starts working on his project. His brother comes into the room and takes a couple of shirts to try on for the party. Sammy asks him where he's going, and he tells him that a Swedish DJ is playing at the bar, so he's going with his friends. His brother invites him, but Sammy declines. He has work to do. Sammy continues working, but after some time, he receives a voice message from Nazim saying that Daphne's there. Sammy thinks about it and ends up going to the party. He goes through the crowd and gets to Nazim and Ozj. He asks Nazim where Daphne is, and he tells him that Daphne isn't there, and he only told him that to get him to the party. Sammy pushes him and calls him sick. Sammy's brother takes him to the bar to calm him down. He asks him whether he's mad about him inviting Ozj, and Sammy tells him that's not the problem. His brother tells him that he has something, and pulls out a pill from his pocket. Sammy asks him what it is, and he says that Nazim had given it to him. Sammy gets furious and attacks Nazim. Nazim gets on top of Sammy and makes him swallow the same pill they're fighting about. Sammy hurries and goes to the bathroom to throw up. The pill has already taken effect, and he spends his whole night dancing and hallucinating. He gets out of the club early in the morning and calls Daphne. He doesn't get an answer, so he sits down next to a dog. He introduces himself to the dog and asks what Daphne's doing. Sammy tells the dog that he's given up on everyone. He asks the dog whether he knows Daphne, and before the dog has a chance to answer, he throws up. He goes to Burl's cafe. He tells her that he is ready for her to love him, and for him to love her. She laughs at him and says that she appreciates the flirting, but he is late with the offer. He tells her that it's never too late, but she says that she is pregnant. He can't believe it, so he congratulates her and hugs her tight. Ozj wakes Sammy in the morning, and he gives her a judgmental look when he realizes that she has had a one-night stand the previous night. She tells him that she has been confused lately and has the right to sleep with anyone she wants to, like men do. The bell rings, and Ozj goes to open it. Sammy hears Daphne at the door and runs to put his shoes on to see her. He gets to her outside and asks whether she's moving to Germany. She tells him that she's moving next week, but it's none of his business. He asks her whether there's someone else, and she says that it wouldn't have made any difference if there was. He asks her about the photos, and she thinks it's not a big deal. He stops her and asks her to talk to him for at least 2 minutes, but she tells him there isn't anything to talk about. He asks her how she's doing, and she tells him she's well, so he asks her whether she's over him. She tells him that they've had the conversation the previous night, but Sammy only remembers talking to a dog. She continues walking, and he asks her if he did something wrong. She tells him that he didn't mess up, but he never said the right thing. He asks her to remind him what he said the previous night, and she tells him that he had asked her if he messed up in the relationship. Daphne snaps and tells him that his arrogance has always been stronger than his feelings. She says that he never asked her where she went or why she left, and the concern was always if he messed up or not. She was tired of never being the first thing for him, and that's why she left. Sammy goes home and locks himself in his room. After a while, he gets out to say goodbye to his brother. He hugs him tight and hands him a cup that he wants their mother to have. When he comes back to the apartment, Sammy calls work and tells them that the project can't be done in time. In fact, he doesn't even plan on finishing it. He stays home for a couple of days, and one morning, he gets a ring on his door. He opens the door to see his boss standing in front of it. He lets her in, and she sits down. She assumes that he has depression because of Daphne leaving him, and he agrees. He starts telling her about his problems, but she cuts him off and says that she doesn't care. She doesn't care about his personal problems, or what he does about them. She just wants the project finished. She asks him whether he feels embarrassed, and mentions the advance she had given him. Sammy tries to give her a lame excuse, but she cuts him off by saying screw this, as she walks out of the apartment. Sammy calls his mother later in the night, and she tells him that she knows everything. She tells him that she has received the letter his father had written her, and says that it was addressed to both of them. Tears fill Sammy's eyes as he tells her that he had gone to their bathroom when his father left and found the hideous cup there. He had taken everything, and Sammy assumes he had forgotten the cup in a rush. He tells his mother that the same cup had been in his bathroom the day Daphne had left him. His mother feels for him and asks him why he had taken the cup from their house. He tells her that it had been the only thing left of him, and he had to take it so he would have a memory of him. He asks her what it is, and she tells him that it's nothing. They have gotten in Dusseldorf. She assumes that he hadn't taken it because it didn't have any meaning to him. He might have thought he could wash his sins by leaving the cup. Sammy starts crying and says that he had inherited all of his father's sins. He asks her how she felt when he left, and she tells him that she was devastated. He tells her that he knows what that feels like, but admits not knowing how to deal with heartbreak. His mother tells him that everyone experiences heartbreak in their life, and everyone deals with it differently. Sammy starts to see his flaws and works on becoming better. He moves into his new apartment and starts taking his job seriously. His boss congratulates him on completing the project, but Sammy has something else on his mind. He asks her why she had visited him that day, and she tells him that she felt like he wasn't hearing her. She felt like he didn't care for his boss, but most importantly, she took care of him, because his mother used to be her teacher. His mother is a person she truly admires. Sammy wants to get better, so he does all of the things he should have done earlier. Starting with Ozj, he gives her a new guitar and tells her that he has set her up with a guitar instructor, so she can learn how to play it. Ozj hugs him. She can't believe he has done something like that. He goes to the gravestone of Daphne's grandmother. He remembers Daphne's words about him from her grandma and places the flowers on her grave. He doesn't leave before putting the sticker of the tattoo he had designed for Daphne. He helps his friend in the cafe shop by painting on their wall. She is pregnant and well, and they take pictures of the finished product. He gets a tattoo with meaning only for him. He measures his empty apartment and decides to get a dog. He goes to the dog shelter and gets a dog similar to the dog he thought he talked to that one night. He takes the dog into the car and decides to name him Rustum. He promises the dog that it can count on him and admits that he has just started learning. Some time passes and Sammy is walking with his buddy Rustum. He hears his name being called out and sees Daphne across the street. He gets to her and she pets Rustum. She asks him how he's doing and he tells her fine. He asks her the same thing and she tells him that she's doing well in Germany. She says that she has been back for a week and is going back to Germany that same day. He says that it's nice to see her and she says the same. She notices his new tattoo and says that she would have put a firework with darkness behind it instead of a constant itching against one's nature. Sammy smiles and walks off with his dog. As she looks at them, he turns around and gives her one last smile before moving on.